The Iowa Hawkeyes, with a 93-82 victory, we're live here just about, 7 hours removed. A little bit less than that, about 6 hours removed from our victory here, Gary. And we've had the full day of, I know you've had a full day of football and basketball watching.
Great day.
We better enjoy this because, as you know, once we hit, yes, fly, Eagles, fly. You're sporting the no Hawkeye garb from Gary today, which is fine. Enjoy these days, Gary, because as you know, we've got obviously the Super Bowl in 2 weeks, but I can't believe we're about to turn the calendar to February, and packed little segment. We can talk about the NFL here in a few minutes, but packed little spurt of games here for Iowa, 3 in a row that are at home and getting things off on the right track. Kind of an odd result to me. By the way, we've got Wade Lookingbill on the queue. We're going to add him in just a second. But before we do, I just wanted to get your take on this very odd Iowa-Rutgers score. I mean, certainly you compare it to the game in Piscataway. Rutgers, typically any game they play is a low-scoring affair. The Hawkeyes putting up 93. Just your overall takeaways from today's win.
Well, it's a terrific win. That Rutgers is coming in second place, the only team that's beaten Purdue. They've only got 4 losses in the league, and 2 of them are to Iowa. And so a terrific win. I think you come into Carver and you want to run with Iowa. That's a dangerous task to take on, and they tried and weren't successful. I think the incredible thing is they outscored them by 19 at the free throw line and by 18 at the 3-point line. In those 2 areas, they just wiped them out. And Rutgers looked a little bit like they did last year, kind of sloppy on defense, a lot of fouls. Didn't play as smart as they'd been playing, and cost them the game.
Let's add former Iowa basketball player Wade Lookingbill. Mr. Lookingbill, how are you, sir?
Did the Eagles play today? Did they win? Are you from Philly, Coach Close? I never knew that. You never mentioned that. You never talked about the Phillies or the Eagles or the Flyers, or Bruce Springsteen.
That's Philly
that stuff.
So Wade, you grew up pretty close. I mean, I shouldn't say pretty close to Minneapolis, but I mean, in Fort Dodge, you're kind of a stone's throw away from the Minnesota border. Now you're in Des Moines. I mean, are you a Chiefs? What team do you take to in the pros?
With the NFL? I never have had one. The only team I used to always like the St. Louis Cardinals in baseball, and the only reason was because when I was a kid, I would just kind of shoot baskets in my driveway and listen to AM 1400 KVFD out of Fort Dodge, and they were the Cardinals affiliate, and it's just something where you grew up it was Iowa basketball and Iowa football. I never lived outside the state. My dad loved the Yankees growing up. He's loved Joe DiMaggio, loved Mickey Mantle. But my team was always the Cardinals. And as far as football, I never had a team. It just kind of I like watching Kansas City play, but I was cheering for Cincinnati tonight. I like Joe Burrow, but he was born in Iowa, so that's something.
Joe Burrow was born in Iowa.
Right,
yeah, his dad was the football coach at Ames High, I believe.
Really? I didn't know
Joe
that.
was born in Ames and moved away when he was 2 or something like that. So, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There's a photo. I believe there's a photo out there of him in an Iowa State shirt. I mean, as a toddler.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there is. Yeah, I think was his dad at Iowa State for a minute, too? I forget.
I was thinking you might be right about Ames High, but I was thinking he was on the Iowa State staff.
Could be. That probably is right. Yeah, but he was born in Ames, and Luckily, he got out of there fast. Yeah.
So
no, crazy night for basketball for Iowa. They good win.
Wade, before we get to that win, I just so everybody's aware, and Gary and Wade and I just had a brief conversation before we jumped on the air, and no surprise to anybody that follows this show, I was ripping on the NFL refs. Gary and Wade both said, no, I agreed with the call. So no changes here. This is the norm here, Wade.
You can't shove Patrick Mahomes when he's got 2 feet out of bounds. That's probably the one guy you better not touch like that.
I think that's so I looked at that. It was the right call, right? I mean, just watch that replay. And I think my vantage point from that play is, boy, in that moment, that play determined the game. I mean, it just did. I mean, I don't think Bucker's not making a 60-yard field goal. I just don't think he is. Not in those conditions. But it was the right call. And I just feel bad for the Cincinnati defender.
Yeah, he looked like he was in tears after the game. And it's tough. You think about football, you're chasing, you're trying to tackle and bring him down, and all of a sudden you have to pull up. But it's too bad because it's probably too bad. Well, just a great game. And I felt, why was Cincinnati playing in Kansas City anyway? Why wasn't that a neutral site or a coin flip? I never really understood that either.
Well, they didn't because Kansas City had a better record. But there was some.
What if Cincinnati would have won that Bills game?
Right.
Maybe that just doesn't affect the tiebreaker. I don't know, but good day of sports.
Monday.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And last day of multiple football games on a Sunday for, actual football games. I don't know, the USFL and all those things. But anyways, I digress. A lot of great stuff. And congratulations, Gary, to your Philadelphia Eagles. They took care of business. I mean, they have been as impressive of an NFL playoff team in recent years that I can remember to this point. And we'll see what happens in 2 weeks from now. But they have dominated everybody they've played for the most part. And I did not expect that. Now, obviously, it hurts when you're already on your third string quarterback and then he gets banged up. But they dominated that game start to finish.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, losing the quarterback pretty much did them in. But you got to protect your quarterback. And got hit and got hurt, and we'll see you next year.
And if it was a nerve, they said it was a nerve.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the case, but if it's a nerve, man, I can't imagine trying to throw with whether your hand is numb or it's actually nerve pain that you're dealing with. I just can't imagine in your throwing arm. But if it's just pain and you can throw through it, boy, it's the biggest game of Brock Purdy's young career.
Well, obviously, he couldn't do it. He couldn't even throw it past the line of scrimmage. So it was too bad as far as that goes.
All right, let's get to Iowa. We got the better part of an hour to talk Iowa Hawkeye basketball, and we got about 114 people watching now. Be sure to share the show out on social media. Tell your friends if you're maybe winding down from a long day. Wind down with our show here, Iowa Postgame with Coach Gary Close and special guest Wade Lookingbill. And Wade, as Gary said at the outset, this is a tough Rutgers team, a team that was tied for second place in the Big Ten heading into this game. The Hawkeyes just completed a season sweep and in pretty impressive fashion to put up 93 against the Steve Peichel team. Your thoughts on how they got it done?
Yeah, I thought it was just a really great team effort. Chris Murray was really good, but he wasn't great. He didn't get 30 and 20, and I think there are games when Iowa plays that he has to have games like that. Rabracha, I don't know if he really even scored just a couple points, but I think it was just pieces. Obviously Patrick McCaffrey coming in, knocking down 3 threes. Everything they didn't do. When was that? Against Michigan State. Was that Thursday night? The nights kind of run together. They didn't make free throws. They didn't make threes. Everything they didn't do then, they did today. But I was solid. And Rutgers, they got some dudes. They got some tough kids.
Yeah.
And usually that's where Iowa kind of struggles against the Rutgers or the Penn State, those physical teams that like to beat on you. But they were solid, and I think they kind of withstood those couple Rutgers runs where they cut it to 1 or tied it up and got the lead back going. And I'm excited for this team. You forget Patrick McCaffrey against that first game or that game against Wisconsin, he had like 22 and 14 or something. Before he had the issues, he was arguably their second best player. If they can get him back healthy and contributing, they're going to be okay.
Gary, I'm just curious your thoughts on the defense today. I'd be quite frank, and I talked Iowa's defense against Michigan State up. I thought it was really good, basically from start to finish in East Lansing, which is a tough place to play, and I do believe it's officiated differently. I thought the defense was okay today. I mean, I didn't think it was great. When you put up 93 against that defense, I mean, that deserves to be credited because that's an impressive showing. What did you think of Iowa's half-court, especially their half-court defense today?
I actually thought their half-court defense was decent. I thought where they really struggled was in the full court. Getting back in transition, I think a couple times they left the rim unguarded and gave up layups. A couple times it looked like all 5 guys kind of ran back to the paint and then didn't fan out and cover people and gave some open threes. But I think once they got it 5-on-5, they were decent. I think the transition is where they suffered the most. And Rutgers is a pretty good running team that can take advantage of it, but got enough stops to get a win. But I think the offense carried them today.
Rutgers averaging 63.6 points per game in the conference. So nearly 20 above that. But Iowa, I mean, in the conference, averaging 76 and against one of the best defensive teams in the conference, eclipsing the 90-point mark. So lots to get to here. Let's get to our caller who got on here early. Doug, welcome to the show, Doug.
Hey, how you doing? I don't know how much I like talking to a Fort Dodge Dodger being a little cyclone, but he brought up Jim, or Joe Burrow. Jim was our high school coach when I was in 10th and 11th grade. Okay. He was on Walden's staff and then stayed there. Was he his brother Dan is good friends with me, or he was a really good guy. I was getting picked on once in 10th grade basketball, and Dan stuck up for me, and I really appreciated that. And Dan was a really good guy. That's Joe's half brother, and they were a really good family while they were in Ames. So yeah.
So Joe's dad was the head coach at Ames High?
Yes.
And then went to Iowa State?
No, he was at Iowa State, and Walden got fired.
Oh.
And McCartney didn't hire him, and he had 2 sons that were in high school and wanted to coach them, Jamie and Dan, who both went to Nebraska and were pretty good players at Nebraska. And then he took an assistant coaching job at Nebraska. That's right. And then when Solich got fired, he followed Solich to Ohio and coached there. Joe could have came back to Ames. Paul Rhodes was going to offer Jim a job on his staff, and things would have been a little bit different, I think, if that would have happened.
Yeah, so, you never know. That's true. Interesting. All right. Yeah, thanks for clearing that up.
Yeah. Well, one of my big enjoyments, I was a Hawkeye, even though I was a little Cyclone. One of my biggest enjoyments was going to the different gyms and going up to Fort Dodge and seeing your picture of the 88 team. And, you go to every gym in the CIML and you'd see a Hawkeye. You go to Mason City, you see Dean Oliver. You go to West Des Moines Valley, you see Matt Bullard, or Dowling, you'd see Bobby Hansen. And that was one of my biggest thrills as a Hawkeye, is going to the different gymnasiums and seeing your guys' pictures and seeing what you guys did. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. I missed those days of I don't know, if the old Big 8 was still around, but now it's changed so much with the conference realignment and everything. But Ames is still a great school, and Harrison Barnes was very generous. They built a new gym. I haven't seen that yet, but Ames was always a great place to go and play. We had some battles with those guys, Dwayne McGee and Fred when he was young played too. So yeah, it was fun.
We had some battles with like I said, I played against Fort Dodge quite a bit. I was a bench warmer, but I'm trying to remember some of those guys' names and I can't. But the Fort Dodge was our whole conference was really competitive. Back when I was in high school, Hawkeyes wasn't in the conference, and now they have 2 high schools that are dominant.
Yeah, so we're probably gonna get a third pretty soon. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, but I just I was too young to watch you, but I remember going and seeing your pictures up at Fort Dodge and stuff, and learning that you were Mr. Basketball in '88, and that was pretty cool. I guess I'll talk a little bit about the Hawkeyes and today. It's hard to win on the road. I think if we just finish 12-8, we'll probably finish second or third in the conference. We were talking about that, just because I think probably Purdue's ran away with it, but nobody's really that far. Northwestern's second at 6-3, and we beat them. Nobody's. I mean, we have 5 more home games. Minnesota on the road, I would think, is a winnable game. I think we're right there for a double bye, and I think we get the double bye, we're in good shape. I think we're in good shape to make the tournament as long as we don't completely fall apart.
Minnesota's terrible.
Yeah,
I hate to say that, but relative to the conference, they're awful. Gary, is that a fair estimation in your opinion of where Iowa's at? I mean, there's a lot of teams. We've talked about the number of teams that are currently on the bubble here over a month out from Selection Sunday. And Iowa is, I mean, I know Lenardi's higher on Iowa than Mike DeCourcy is. He's DeCourcy's a very well-respected guy, and he does bracketology. Iowa is an 11 seed prior to this game. This was a quad 1 win, by the way.
Yeah, that'll move them up. This
will help you. But is that a fair estimation of where Iowa's at in your opinion, tournament-wise?
Yeah, no, I think they're in good shape. They got to, like a lot of teams that are grouped with them, they got to take care of business. But today was a big win. That's the Rutgers, the second place team, and the only team to beat Purdue. And so it was, and they won fairly, I don't want to say fairly easily, but good solid win. So yeah, no, it's got to help.
Wade.
Yeah, I think the same thing. I think even 10-10 in the Big Ten this year is going to get you in. Now, don't go 10-10 and get beat in the first round of that Big Ten tournament because you're going to be sweating it on Sunday. But Iowa's got a pretty good schedule the rest of the way. If you look at it, they only get Purdue once this year, at Minnesota, even at Wisconsin. Now is a winnable game. They're really struggling. But like Coach Cole said, they just can't stub their toe. They got to beat Ohio State at home, who's got they got pros on that team. They need to take care of business. And I think if they go 11-9, even 10-10, and win one game in the Big Ten tournament, they're probably, 7, 8, 9 seed, depending on where everybody else goes. And it's going to be a crazy tournament this year because who are you really scared of? Purdue on a neutral site is, it's something where they're not, Duke of 1991. But again, Iowa's got some work to do. They, losing at Nebraska the way they did, losing that close one to Wisconsin, they can't stub their toe. And then, of course, the big thing, they got to stay healthy. Chris Murray does so much for them, and keep him healthy, keep Patrick McCaffrey rolling. But I like the way they're playing.
Wade, you I mean, how much do you think that Eastern Illinois? We've talked about this, but that's still a loss on the schedule, a big loss on the schedule. Do you still think 10-10 with a win in the Big Ten tournament gets them possibly to even a 7 or an 8?
I think so. And even even if they're a 10 or 11, you're almost better off being that lower seed, so you stay away from those.
I agree.
Those 1s and 2s. To be an 8 is not some big accomplishment versus being a 10. It's really weird. It's really strange the way the brackets kind of match up on the numbers, but I think they go 11-9. When you look at the schedule, with the win today, they got to beat Northwestern, battle with Purdue, come back and beat Illinois, and then I forget where they go after that. But don't lose to Ohio State at home. Don't get blown out at Wisconsin. At least battle up there. And I know you said Minnesota's bad, but man, that's a tough place to play. And they got. Dawson Garcia is a pro. He's a McDonald's All-American. It's just something where they've kind of used up all their freebies, getting blown out in Nebraska, Eastern Illinois, all those things. So it's just going to be a fun February, March.
Did your dog want a word there? You look like he.
Yeah, it's just.
Yeah,
you gotta get the dog.
He's got opinions.
Yeah.
Gary, anything else to add to that?
No, I think they touched on it. On the right. Yeah, it's that the league is so bunched up from second down to about 11th that somebody goes on a 2 or 3 game winning streak, they can go all the way up to the top of the standings, and the same thing. You lose 2 or 3 and go all the way down to the bottom. So, it's going to make for some really interesting games finishing up, no question.
Wade, last question. Go ahead, Doug. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I think we're in position we can get a double bye. And I also was just curious, I'm going to get off. Phillip in foul trouble. I know this was really the first game that happened, but that is something that concerns me. Mulvey played a whole 10 seconds. So I just was curious if what Wade and Coach thought about foul trouble with Phillip.
Thanks.
Well, that's definitely definitely a concern because of the lack of depth behind him. And that's why, as Wade said, that was what was encouraging is we had some other guys step up. Having Patrick back with his length will help. Although he's not bulky, he does have some length, so that'll help size-wise. I think it's one of the reasons why you saw a lot of zone is they went to that and played a smaller lineup. But Phillips done a good job of staying out of foul trouble, but he's going to have to do that because that's going to be one thing every team's going to try to get him out of the game with fouls, and that'll help their chances of winning.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback on that, they went that small lineup with like Connor at the 4 and Chris at the 5, and they actually battled pretty well on the boards. That's where I think I think the key for Iowa every game is they got to break even on the boards. They got to be respectable from 3, and then they have to beat people from the free throw line. And they did all 3 of those things today. But if they don't do one, and if they'll only do, or if they just do 2 of those or just one, like against Michigan State, they shot it terrible, but they still were right there. So there are some positives. But yeah, that's the big thing. And Rabrach has been unbelievable. I mean, he's more athletic, I think, this year than he was last year, and he rebounds, block shots, and brings some toughness. Chris is so soft-spoken and that quiet demeanor, and Phillips a little more like Connor, a little more fiery. So he's been a big piece.
No doubt.
Ari Gold says Coach Close basketball IQ over under 163.
Mensa. It's Mensa level.
What is 163? I have no clue.
Jason says, Coach, were you at the game? I think it's fair to say you were not at the game, right, Gary?
I was not at the game today, no, but I'm going to be there this week.
Both of them, Northwestern and
possibly, definitely Saturday and possibly Tuesday as well.
Illinois is going to be rocking sold out. That's the first official sellout that I'm aware of. So Saturday should be fun. Northwestern's a big game, and we'll get to that here a little bit later. Did want to get to a comment here in the chat from James. He says, did the rotation with Bowen not playing at all surprise you, or was it a factor of Patty Mack coming back and playing well? I first of all, my 2 cents, and I'll throw it over to the experts here. I don't think Fran has a ton of confidence in DeSante right now, and Ulis is playing better. Dix is playing better. He's playing the best basketball of his young career. Tony is not playing great, but 11-7 today, probably played better than he has. Just your thoughts. Maybe we can start with Wade. Just your thoughts on the rotation with McCaffrey back.
Well, I think Aaron Ulis hit those 2 big threes early, and he has struggled shooting the basketball. It's something where, and even Michigan State, he played really well, but he had 6 turnovers. He just is kind of easing into a little bit. But yeah, there's only so many minutes to be played, and it's Josh Dix has been great. And he has better handles than I ever thought. He's playing point guard against a really good defensive Rutgers team, and he's shooting the ball well. So I think you have to give him more minutes, maybe even some of Peyton Sanford's minutes go to Josh Dix. And then definitely with DeSante Bowen, I like what he brings, but, freshman point guards, it's a challenge, especially against this team today. And like Michigan State during the week, they bang you, they beat on you. I think it was just kind of a game situation where Ulis was playing well, Dix was shooting it well, Patrick was back. So I think DeSante is going to get some more time. It's just going to be probably less and more infrequent.
Agree with that, Gary?
Yeah, totally. I think Ulis, the way he was playing, I think the fact he got Patrick back was big. And I think also Rutgers is one of their strengths of their guards. Those guards are good defenders and they're physical. And so I don't know if you didn't like that matchup too much with a freshman guard going against those guys. So Dix takes care of the ball. He's not real flashy, but he doesn't turn the ball over and he hits shots when he's open. And they probably want to get him some more minutes. So, but I think having Patrick is going to affect minutes all the way up and down the lineup. And today was Bowen.
Big Dix energy.
Yeah, he's a good player. I like him.
He's a good player. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Go ahead. Wait.
Obviously, yeah. He's not some stiff. Creighton offered him. Purdue offered him. I think he's still not 100% physically. He broke both bones in his legs like a year ago, 12 months ago.
The fact he's playing is
and doing what he's doing, and I think he's more confident, got a little more balance. I think he had a block shot the other day,
Great block shot.
and he can score. He's not just a standstill shooter, and he's big too, 6'5", 6'6". So hopefully he can just keep getting better.
And there's something to be said for just a smart, high IQ basketball player, right? Yeah. I mean, he plays hard on both ends, and you mentioned the leg injury. I don't think a lot of people expected him to be able to play this well his freshman season. There was talk about him redshirting, right? And he's out there.
Last February. It was right before the tournament. I mean, it wasn't. I don't think it's even been 12 months. Yeah.
And he makes open threes. I mean, he's got a nice stroke. Gary, you're known to be a pretty darn good shooting coach. Would you agree with that sentiment?
Shot doctor.
No, he can shoot it. He can shoot it. He's the kind of guy, when he shoots it, you think it's going to go in, and you're surprised when it doesn't. And I think he'll only get better. So the fact that he's even playing is quite a tribute to him, because that was a bad break.
And in reference to James, your comment about Bowen, I mean, I think, first of all, I think Bowen's going to be terrific. I mean, you talked, Wade, about Dix and his high school pedigree, and certainly the attention he got in the recruiting ranks. Bowen's a 4-star kid who had a lot of attention. He's going to be just fine, right? I mean, it's going to take time. Is it fair to say when the ball's in your hands that much, it's harder? It's harder for a freshman to come in and be a huge difference maker as a point guard, as opposed to a guy who's, I would call Dix more of an off guard. I know he can handle the ball, and he's doing a nice job of that. But is that fair to say, Gary?
Yeah, no, I think so. Playing point guard, especially at this level, it's a huge jump. It's tough. I mean, and he's quick enough and talented enough that he can get around people, but that also puts him in position to turn the ball over more. Whereas Dix is just going to get the ball up and get the offense going and not try to do too much. Bowen's got the ability to do more, but when you do more, you run the risk of turning the ball over more. And right now he's probably turning over more than making good plays. And against those guards today, those are two really good defensive physical guards. I think he probably just thought that matchup wasn't in our advantage, so he went another direction.
And people wonder. Go ahead.
And benches get shorter, Coach, don't they?
Yeah.
Later in the year, you start, because they got a month left, 5 weeks before tournaments start, and where you played 11, a month ago, now you're playing 9, might even cut it to 8. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, no, I agree totally. Yep.
And people wonder, how did Iowa score 93? And you brought it up, Wade. Philip Rebracha, a quiet night from his perspective, and ended up fouling out late. Just 7 points, 6 boards for Philip. And I think the answer to that question, how did they get to 93, is just a lot of balance. Everybody in that lineup scored today and contributed. Obviously, Chris Murray with the 24 and 6. You've got Aaron Eulis, who had 16 points, and how about that? Just 1 turnover. Yeah. That's a positive development. I thought he had a great first half. Nearly made that. Had he made that 3 to end the half on a steal, you're talking about maybe an all-time high in confidence. And he just continues. It just seems like he's turned the corner. And maybe, he is a junior. Maybe that light just finally came on. But if he cleans up turnovers and can shoot as well as he has been, sky's the limit, right? I mean, you just look at his brother. He's got good genes. The kid can ball, and right now he's playing well. And of course, Tony Perkins, I mentioned him, 11 and 7 tonight, and McCaffrey, Connor with the 11 points, and Patrick going in there and making all 3 of his 3-point attempts for 9 points. Just your thoughts. We shouldn't skip over that. Patrick returning from an absence where he was focusing on mental health. Maybe, Wade, if you want to comment on just seeing him go out there and, of course, getting that ovation from the crowd.
Yeah, I thought, I just watched it on television also. I wasn't there, but it was a really nice reception. And I think 30 years ago, which sounds awful to say, but 30 years ago when I played, you just didn't see guys doing that. And I'm sure everybody was fighting it at the time. And now it's just exacerbated even more with Twitter and social media, and just everybody has an opinion. So it's tough. It's hard. And, and your dad's the head coach and your brother's the player, and you're such a prominent name in the state. It is hard. And Patrick's been through a lot more than most 21-year-olds don't need to go through, whether it's his own battle with cancer, or they even made mention of it in the telecast, losing his close friend Flash to cancer. It's just a lot to deal with. And then throw in, trying to play basketball and do all this stuff. And I think he just kind of needed a break, and he can get back in shape. I thought he was winded a little bit, but they played him just in spurts enough. But Patrick McCaffrey could be a pro. I mean, he is 6'9", long. Looks like Jared Uthoff out there just running, and when he can finish at the rim. But just baby steps. I think even if he would have gone 0 for 7 today, it would have been a positive just to have him back on the court.
Oh, I think that's well said. And he is a talent, and it just gives you more depth. And I'm sure the guys were excited to have him back. And like you said, he'll have to, he's going to have to get in playing shape. But that's just another body to deal with. So I thought he played really well for having not played in probably 3-4 weeks. So real positive sign. I think we had 8 guys that scored 7 or more points. So we had, really good balance, really good depth. A lot of guys picked other guys up, and that's how you get a big win.
Before we get to our next caller, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Brad Van Meter, and his team down at State Farm. Give Brad and his team a call at 515-256-6480. They're giving great coverage, great service to their customers from border to border here in the state of Iowa. So if you are possibly looking to save money and, of course, sign on with a great team that will treat you on a personal level, treat you right, treat you fair, call Brad and his team or visit them online, www.bradvanmeter.com, or in person at 4229 Fleur Drive in Des Moines. Thanks to Brad, as always, for sponsoring the show. Let's get to our caller who's been on hold. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame with Coach Gary Close. Who's on the line?
Hey, how's it going, guys? Chris from Chicago. Big win for your Eagles, Coach. Congrats.
Yes, thank you.
So a great game today. I mean, I was very encouraged about what I saw today. Really, kind of what I'm seeing right now. So if you take a look at who we've beaten so far, our big wins. So you look at Rutgers, they have a top 5 10-pound defense. You have Iowa State, top 5 10-pound defense, I believe. I think Seton Hall is like a top 15 10-pound defense. So, I mean, super impressive offensively. I mean, what they're able to do against really top of the league, top-notch defensive. So I'm not concerned about the offense. But my question for you guys is, to me, the goal for the rest of the season is figuring out a strategy defensively. This defensive effort, it was better today, but it's still not sustainable if you actually want to make a run. Like, if you guys were the coach of this team, what would be your philosophy for defense this last month to try to get something put together, get us a top 80 defense to attempt to make a run? What are you seeing now versus what do you think could change if you were the coach of the team?
And caller, I just want to say, I think we're having a hard time hearing you, but I think we all did hear your question, but if you could maybe speak up a little bit better. But Coach, do you have a thought on sustainability of this defense and how to make it better in the next month?
Well, I touched on it a little bit earlier. I think what you want to try to do defensively is make teams earn their points and not give anything easy, and easy being around the rim or easy being wide open threes. If you can make them try to beat you with 2-point jump shots, your chances go up. And I think where Iowa's been inconsistent is in those 2 areas of giving up too many shots around the basket and then too many open threes. That's where I think they've got to really focus in. And it starts from the basket out. I mean, that's the first place you got to guard is the basket. And I think a lot of times in transition, they don't get somebody back and get the rim protected first and not let guys run right down the middle of the floor and go right to the basket. And then once you can get that covered, then you cover up the shooters and then try to keep them from getting the rim and try to keep them getting open threes, which is easier said than done. But usually if you're giving up 2-point jump shots, you got a better chance to win than if you're obviously giving up layups or open threes.
Wade?
Yeah, it was interesting today. Purdue played at 11. So you watched Purdue, Michigan State, and then Iowa was right after that. And you watch Purdue play, and now they're the number 1 team in the country, and they guard. They guard better than Iowa, but they are limited offensively. I mean, if they're not making shots, and those 2 freshman guards, they're solid, but they got guys out there that really can't shoot at all. So Iowa's not at their level defensively, but I think offensively Iowa is really good. So I think it's just something like the caller said, if they can get to 75, 80, maybe even top 60 in defense, they're going to be okay. Now, I think too, just again, to piggyback what Coach said, I was at the Indiana game and it was awful. They were down 20-4, 35-15, and they started switching defenses. They went to that 1-3-1, played more zone. I think that's something they have to do even more than they did today. I think they did a little bit of it. Now they were in foul trouble, so they kind of had to go with that smaller lineup. But I think Iowa's good when they go with that 1-3-1 and they have Chris up front, or now Patrick, or even Peyton Sanford, who's 6'7", 6'8". They don't have 6'10", 6'11", but they've got 7 guys that are 6'8", 6'9". And I think if they can utilize that length, whether it's man-to-man in certain spots or just switching up, playing some zone, I think they'll be okay. I think they're getting better, which is what you want to see.
That answer your question, caller?
No, yeah, totally. That makes sense. I mean, yeah, I feel like that zone. I mean, sometimes their zone, I feel like when they get in that cushy zone, though, I feel like the Ohio State game, sometimes to me, they struggle to commit to the zone. So then they're basically, they're leaving. The zone's so cushy, they're leaving 3-point shooters wide open. I mean, that's by design, but they're still giving up stuff inside. But yeah, I mean, I think we all recognize that defense is the issue here. But yeah, that's really all I had. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
The call, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the call.
Yeah, and I mean, let's be honest. Iowa's proven that they can have complete performances on the defensive end. I mean, you look at the game on Thursday. I'll reference that again, Gary. But I mean, I thought for the most part they were really good on that end. But you could argue they really struggled offensively, right? I mean, they made 3 threes. They had struggles at the free throw line. Didn't shoot the ball great. How hard is it to? I mean, I know it. The great teams find a way. But how hard is it to be really good on both ends? I know that's kind of a simplified question.
It's real hard. I mean, it's extremely difficult, and sometimes you can be really good and you just don't make any shots. I mean, that's the part of the game where you've got wide open shots or real good shots, and they just don't drop. Iowa's been a really strong free throw shooting team most of the year, and then they shoot bad free throws against Michigan State. So, that stuff will come up and bite you. But if you're consistently good, you won't have a lot of games like that, and that's where they've got to get to, where they're just a little more consistent, keep improving, which is what all the teams are trying to do right now. Is just get a little bit better as this season goes on. I think for the most part, they've done that.
ZJ wants to know, Wade, do you remember the 3 you banked in against Illinois? And to add to that, Jesse says, did you call bank?
Yes.
Yeah,
it was a set play. It was a set play. I think it cracked the backboard, but that was a scary Illinois team, and that was Stephen Bartle, Kendall Gill, Kenny Battle, Doc Liberty. I mean,
bunch of pros.
Yeah, that's when Illinois. I think every kid on the lineup from top to bottom was from the state of Illinois, and yeah, we were just struggling that year. We had at one time we were ranked 16th in the country, just beat Carolina, and then the wheels kind of fell off, and we lost some kids and stuff. But yeah, that was one of the few positive things that happened that year was we beat Illinois at home. But yeah, it was missed it so bad it went in. Yeah.
Oh, you did. You called it.
Let's get to our next caller here. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame with Coach Gary Close. Who's on the line?
This is John, gentlemen.
Hey, John.
Hi, John.
Hi, Gary. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Wade, a question for you. When you go on the road and you go into Michigan State, Indiana, possibly Purdue as a player, and their home crowd gets going, does that affect you as a player? Can crowd affect a game, or is that something you can, for the most part, tune out?
I think it can a little bit as a player. I always like playing on the road. There are much less or much fewer distractions when you're on the road. Maybe Coach can agree with this. When you're at home, it's like, are you meeting your parents afterwards? People want tickets to games. There's just a lot of things going on school. When you're on the road, it's just basketball. So I think from that aspect, being on the road was simpler, but those arenas get loud, and it's really noticeable. Free throws, timeouts during the flow of the game. When the game is live, you don't notice it so much, but there's definitely an advantage. Wait till Iowa goes to Purdue next week. West Lafayette they are rocking and rolling there. They got something special going on, but it can get quiet really fast too. And I thought that was always kind of a neat thing. When you're up 6 with 22 seconds left, the game's virtually over. Those arenas can get quiet really quick.
Okay. There was double technicals today. Is there usually a lot of smack talking out on the court, or is that unusual?
Was there a double technical tonight? I thought that was on Thursday.
I think Michigan State there was one with. I thought that was a strange call. I mean,
Wade was a big trash talker.
A little bit. I mean, I think it's part of basketball. Like that double tech. I think you're right, Corey. I think it was at Michigan State. It was
Ulyss
and it was really nothing. Nobody said any magic words. They didn't square off. It was just, it's basketball. I think that's part of it, and it's just, why can't we celebrate after we make a dunk or a three? I mean, we don't want throat slashing or anything like that, but I think that's part of the game. Now I understand that the officials rule as a rule and they're just enforcing the rules, but like that double technical against Michigan State, going down the court, talking to each other a little bit. I think that's part of the game.
Anything else, Colin?
Was there, just Gary and Wade, was there an arena that you didn't like going to on the road?
Well, that's a good question because there are some really good arenas in the Big Ten. But like Wade said, I always kind of enjoyed going to those places. A lot of had history, and boy, if you get a win, there's nothing more enjoyable than beating somebody on their home court, and just sticking it to them. It doesn't, so when it happens, you got to enjoy it. But I think in the Big Ten, Wade, you can add, I think Indiana's a really tough place to play. Purdue is a really tough place to play. Michigan State's gotten better and better when they got the new arena. Iowa State's a tough place to play.
Minnesota, they're really down now, but when that place gets loud, that old barn, yeah.
It's one of the advantages of playing in the Big Ten is, for the most part, the arenas are great and the fans are terrific, and makes for really good basketball.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, John.
Go Hawks.
All right, let's get to James, who's been waiting on hold. James, welcome to the show.
How you doing? It's been a while. I've been busy with games and stuff, so I haven't been able to be on. But
good to have you calling this
Good
evening.
to have you.
Yeah. One thing you were saying about defense is, like, obviously I coached high school level, so it's a little different high school. But, like, I know for us, we're playing a lot of man, and then we switch to zone, and the zone was something we haven't ran, and then we throw different looks at them, and that gets people confused. So I can guess at a college level, even throwing different looks at them will get them confused as well.
Yeah,
like,
I think
because like one minute you'll be a man, and the next minute for them they run 1-3-1, and they'll be in 2-3. Then you don't know what's coming, so then your sets always are changing.
I will say this though, James. I don't know that I'm not going to speak for you, Gary, but I think I can see where your mind is. Gary doesn't like switching defenses all the time, right? And you're the expert, not me, but it makes sense that if you're constantly switching defenses, you're what's the old phrase? I'm going to butcher this, but is it a worker of many? What's the term? Master of none, worker of many, master of none. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But is that fair to estimate with a college defense, with college kids, you need to get good at one thing and try to master that? Or do you, Fran likes to mix things up.
Well, I think that's the question the coaches got to answer for themselves. I think part of it's what they feel comfortable teaching. Some coaches like to play multiple defenses and they think they're effective at it, and they can be. Especially if you can get a team to get confused. And sometimes you'll see that you switch to a defense, and for 3 or 4 possessions, it looks like they have no clue how to attack a zone if they're switched to that, or some kind of full court pressure. But then the other thought is if you got an hour and a half, 2 hours a day to practice and less than that during the year, if you're having to work on 3 or 4 different defenses, how good do you get at any one of them? And that's the coaching philosophy question. You got to ask yourself, what do you want to do? And a lot of times it comes down to just comfort as to what you feel is important, what you like teaching, and both can be effective. So you should probably go with where you feel the most comfortable.
Well, I also feel like it's the same for the school I coach at compared to Iowa, where it's like we don't have much depth at the big, so you kind of have to switch it up to a zone. Because, like, you know, like when you have Patrick out there or Chris and Connor, like they did, I feel like you kind of have to switch up for a zone. Because if you go man to man, I feel like Connor or Chris might get beat in the zone more, or beat in man more often than they get beat in the zone.
Sure. Yep. I think that's a possibility.
And I mean, we got Purdue coming up on the schedule. This is the most talented. I mean, this is a different Zach Edey. I think even what we saw in March, and you're going to have to go zone against him. I mean, you right? You can't. It's going to be hard to rebound out of zone, but how much are you going to play Riley Mulvey? I mean, you really want to go one-on-one with Philip Rebraca trying to guard Zach Edey or Connor Wade? How do you attack that?
Yeah, you watch him today, and it's like he's playing like he's a 10th grader playing against 6th graders. And, you know, Michigan State's got some dudes. The foreign kid from Kenya, I mean, he's shot blocker and dunking, and he just looked like a small child today. And I forget who was doing the Purdue game today, but they made the comment. I don't know why people don't try to front him. I think 2 things. I think you have to try to front him, and you have to get better ball pressure. You have to deny that pass coming in, because they just made it so easy for Purdue to pass it around, dump it into Zach Edey. So I think when Iowa plays Purdue, it's going to be tough, but you're going to have to double Zach and just hope that Ethan Morden or those 2 freshman guards don't make a ton of threes. And if they do, then you chalk it up to them. But if you just try to play Zach Edey, you're going to get beat. And maybe Purdue has a bad shooting night, and you know, Rutgers went in there and had a game plan, and you know, Purdue's not, they're really good and they're talented, but they got some holes on that team. You know, it's something where if you catch them on a bad night, you can get them. But with Zach, I mean, he's just there's nobody in college basketball like him.
I also feel like Rutgers has more of an advantage, obviously, than Iowa that's playing them, because they have Amori, who I feel like is one of the more physical bigs in the Big Ten. So, like, for them, it's kind of easier because Amori can kind of battle with Edey, because he's so, even though Edey's 7'4", what's Amori, 6'10", 6'11"?
Yeah, he just rebounds everything.
Yeah, so he can kind of battle with him a little bit. But I feel like Connor played well at the big when he played at the big, because if you watch them go with they didn't play Chris at the 5. They played Connor a lot of times on Amori. He kind of he held his own, which is something obviously not against Edey. But
big difference between 6'8" and 7'4".
Yeah, I know. I'm saying, like, obviously he held his own against him. I feel like against some of the teams, like even Northwest, I feel like he can hold his own a little bit. Once you get there, you're kind of screwed. But that's what happens.
But even, you know, if Iowa plays Purdue or someone like Purdue, I think you got to run Zach. You got to get him tired, and then maybe they sit Rebraca, and then Zach's got to guard Connor at the 4 or Chris Murray at the 5, and you bring him out, you know, away from the basket and make passing lanes or driving lanes a little simpler. But it's still going to be a mismatch defensively. But I think almost with Zach, you go smaller and, you know, try to pick your poison and you know, try to do it that way.
For sure.
And go ahead, James.
One more thing. Like, Ulis, I feel like this is one of the best games he played all year. Like, I feel like he looks more he doesn't make a lot of threes, but he looks more confident in shooting them. Like, he looks more confident that they're going to go in. Like, you know, he'd shoot them a lot of times, and like, he just doesn't have that confidence. This year, it seems like he shoots them and he has more confidence they're going to go in, or more. Like, he thinks they're going to go in more. And I feel like if he plays like this a lot of times, and you're going to get Rebraca to give you 10. Not even going to give you 16, but he can give you like 12. If he gets like 12 to 10, and then you have Rebraca give you like 12, that's a big step forward you could definitely use. That could help you for the rest of the year for sure.
Absolutely. Appreciate the call, James.
Good job, James.
Yeah, I mean, I know Purdue's down the road, but I mean, 38 points today. He is no longer this guy that just I don't know how many minutes he's averaging, but when they had Trevion Williams, it was almost like Edey I don't know if it was I don't want to I act like I know it was a work ethic thing, but it's like once it was his front court, right? It's just like it was his role. He doesn't seem to have too many stamina issues anymore, and I would think that's pretty tough. That's a lot. I would have to think that takes a lot of work for a 7'4" guy to be able to play, 30+ minutes a game.
He doesn't foul too. All those stats they talk about. He has more blocks than fouls or something, but he's efficient for sure.
Okay, we need to get to a couple of the questions that have built up in the chat. First of all, DC Hawkeye, thank you for the super chat, DC Hawkeye. Great show so far. Thank you. Why is Fran and the staff wearing suits again? Started against MSU. I think it's because of the coaches versus cancer, correct?
Yeah. They have a week every year where they do it, and this is the week.
They wear suits and tennis shoes. Is that right, Coach?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Then they auction off the shoes like they did today or something. Yeah. Yep.
No. Gary, how do you feel about them wearing jumpsuits, sweats? I
don't have a problem with it. Initially, I kind of wanted to go back to the suits, but I've gotten kind of used to it. Now it's in the NBA too, and I think it's nice to see him in suits, but it's also nice the other way too. I don't really have a problem with
it. Jason says, Coach, we already got to this question. Ari wants to know, what's Wade doing today? What's he doing these days, I should say?
Yes.
You speak so intricately. You could be coaching. Have you coached at all?
So I was the head coach for the Hawkeyes Hawks when my son was 3rd through 6th grade. So yes, I have coaching experience, head coaching experience. So I'm pretty much an expert. So our daughter's a freshman at Iowa, and she's on the Iowa dance team. So she was at the game today, actually. So yeah, she's on the Iowa dance team. She's a freshman. And then we live in Urbandale, and our son is a junior at Waukee Northwest. And he's a soccer player. He's a goalkeeper. He's pretty tall, about 6'5", 6'5.5". And that's really a kind of a unique thing to have that size in soccer. And he does okay. He's got a chance, and he's talking to some schools, but he'll be a junior at Waukee Northwest, and they'll play soccer here in the spring in Iowa. Their team will be pretty good. They finished 2nd last year and got a lot of people back. And then I am a pharmaceutical sales rep. So I work for a company that produces a drug for breast cancer. So I sell a product for breast cancer. So I go to cancer centers and oncology clinics and try to convince them when and where, if they would use our product. So yeah, the salesman. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, awesome. Good to hear. Cyhawk C Money, the team seems to be getting far more offensive rebounds lately. Is that a liability when teams run a fast break, Gary?
Well, that's the that's the decision you got to make. In some cases, you got to look at the team you're going to play and then decide how many you're going to send to the offensive boards. Obviously, the more you send, then the more you're going to be vulnerable getting back. So, for example, if I were playing Iowa, I probably wouldn't send more than 3 to the offensive boards. I'd have 2 back to take away their break, unless the one guard was within range of getting a rebound, but definitely not the other one. If you're playing a team like Wisconsin that doesn't run very much, then you might send 4 because they're not that big a threat to run. But I think the big problem with the transition is they tend to turn around and backpedal and don't turn and run and get all the way back to the rim and get that guarded first. It's kind of like they backpedal and let guys run right by them, and it leaves that rim vulnerable. And then a lot of times you'll see it where guys think they're doing a great job in transition. They run back to the lane and they just have a tea party in the middle of the lane, and then everybody else is fanning out the 3 and nobody's covered. So a lot of times in transition, you're not going to guard the person that you would normally guard in the half court. It depends on how they come down the court, but you got to get the shooters. You got to know who the shooters are, and you got to cover them up quickly. You just can't hang out in the paint and wait for your guy. And it's hard to do. The transition defense is really difficult, and it can look bad when you don't do it well.
Let's get to our next caller. Cody, welcome to the show.
How are you guys?
Hey, Cody.
Do you think we could petition the Big Ten to let us play Rutgers on Sunday? It's like both times we played them, they just, I don't know, it didn't seem like the same Rutgers team. They seemed a little out of sorts with these Sunday early games, but I don't know if they'll let us do that. But I was just kind of wondering, what do you think the staff can do to get Tony Perkins rolling? It feels like 11-7 was good today, but I just don't feel like he's meeting his potential right now. I mean, not that he has to play like he did in the Big Ten tournament and kind of take the thing over, but I just feel like, I don't know, like I think there's so much more to his game, and we're just, I don't know, it's not showing through right now. It doesn't seem.
Well, he first of all, he was 2 of 9 from the field, so I understand where you're coming from. 2 of 9, and 6 of the 9 points, or 6 of the 11 points came from the free throw line. Wade, do you have some thoughts on how to get Tony going?
Yeah, so I just think, he's a really good player, and he's probably, athletically, he's their best player by far. But he's really not a point guard. He's really not a 2 guard. So now he's, a 6'2 and a half 3-man. But he does some things that really help the team. I think when he wants to, he can defend. I think part of it is now the scouting report is out on him, and it's pressure the ball when he brings the ball up the court, and you don't have to guard him from the 3-point line. So now he's trying to dribble, drive, and create, and sometimes it gets a little out of control. But I think for the rest of the year, Tony can be kind of that glue guy on defense, hustle and play defense. And he's going to have games where he scores 20 points, or he might have games where he scores 7. But I think his shot has got to get better, hopefully in the summer. But it's a tough spot because he's probably more of a 3-man, and they're asking him to handle the ball. At least they were more. But now with Ulis and now with Hunter especially too, they're putting Tony off the ball. But I like his game. He brings some energy, some toughness, and some athleticism.
Well said.
Yeah, I was going to say, Wade, I always enjoyed listening and watching your teams. I grew up on a farm in northwest Iowa, and so we only had 3 stations. So I had to either find Bob Brooks or Jim Zabel if Larry and Mac McCausland weren't doing the game on the station. So it was fun listening.
Where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
Lorenz.
Yeah, Laura Meyer. Yeah.
Yeah, not far from Fort Dodge, about 50 miles or so.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
It was always, I remember I'd get nervous. I'd go up to my room and I'd turn on the radio and I'd shoot hoops on my Nerf hoop.
That's awesome.
Radio and stuff, because I had that on some of those games, listening to you guys all the time. But it was a good time. So
awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Appreciate
you. Comment here from Cyhawk C Money. Wade, who was the strongest driving Iowa guard you played with? Val Barnes, Andre Woolridge, Kevin Smith?
Yeah, so I played with Val and Kevin Smith. I didn't play with Andre, but he was a tough dude. Val was just a flat out scorer. He wasn't a great shooter, wasn't a great ball handler, but man, he could just score. And he had some huge games these past few weeks with the Chris Street remembrance. You forget he had, I think, 30 against Michigan State and 28 or 29 at home against Michigan. Val could just score. But I think of that list, I never played with him, but just watching Andre play, I don't know what the actual stat is, but he's one of the few players ever to lead the league in scoring and assists, and just was a strong point guard. And that's what the game is now. It's so strange to watch. Everything's either a 3-pointer or try to get to the rim. And you watch Zach Edey play, and he gets 38 and 12 or whatever it was. If he comes out this year, he still may not even get drafted in the NBA. The game has changed so much that if you can't shoot the basketball, whether if you're 5'11 or 6'11, if you can't shoot, it's going to be tough for you to continue to move up and to play at the highest levels. And it's just such a strange time, but I don't think it's going away, whether it's high school, college, or in the NBA. It's 3-pointers and, just get shots up and try to rebound and shoot more 3-pointers.
You bring that up. I watched our game with Michigan after the show on Chris, and I was dumbfounded by how few threes were taken, and everybody was just jammed inside the 3-point line. Michigan shot a couple threes when Voska got open against the zone, and then they shot some late when they were behind, and we shot a few, but it was like there were more shots taken just in the 3-point line than stepping a couple feet back and just shooting a three. I was amazed by how few threes were taken. And again, it was in the early 90s. It's really been, like you said,
That's when the line was short too. You forget that was
yeah.
like a layup. Yeah.
Now it's almost half your shots are coming from three, and game has really changed, especially in the last 10, 15 years. It's really, really gone overboard with a 3-point shot.
We do need to go kind of quick fire on these last couple calls. Let's add Tony into the mix. Tony, welcome to the show.
How you doing? I'll try to be quick, I guess. I had a congratulations for Coach and with the Eagles, you know. And do you have anything quick about Brian Butch since he did the game today? Any quick story with the Wisconsin?
Well, the one story that comes to mind, we were playing. Brian was a real good player. Brian, McDonald's All-American. Redshirted his first year because we had some talent. He was a big kid trying to find himself. But I think it was either his junior or senior year. We're playing Ohio State with Oden and Conley, and we're playing for the Big Ten championship. And he separated his shoulder like in the first 3 minutes of the game and was out for that game. We lost by 3 or 4 points. It was a really good game, and then we got knocked out in the second round of the NCAA tournament that year with a team that was really, really good. That it just goes to show you got to take advantage of every opportunity you get because injuries, and he was that valuable a player for us. And when we lost him, we were just a totally different team. And it was late in the year where we really couldn't adjust. So he was a big guy that could really shoot it. He played hard. Real good.
He's ahead of his time, don't you think, Coach? I mean, he'd be more valuable now.
Yeah,
he was a college sophomore than he was when he was playing because the game. Like I said, the game's changed. Yeah.
Yep, there's no doubt. But a real good team player that played hard and had a really, really good career for us.
I had a quick question and another follow up to Wade. Who do you think had more pump fakes in their career, you or Jess Settles?
Well, Jess played for 7 years. So.
That's true. I mean,
is that what it was? Was 7? I thought it was 8.
I thought, yeah.
My problem was I would pump fake and try to score, and then Chris Webber would come from the weak side and pin it on the glass. That was my problem. But I was just trying to survive. Coach Close recruited me, and I'll never forget. Tom Davis came to watch us play Marshalltown my senior year in Fort Dodge. It flew in, and it's 20 below, and I had a terrible game. I got in foul trouble. I got 9 points, and I thought, I'm done. I'm probably going to end up going to UNI or Drake. And then a couple weeks later, Coach Washington came and saw me play at Waterloo East, and had a really good game that day. And then things just fell into place, and I just was so thankful to be able to play at Iowa. It was by far the best offer I had, and tried to make the most of it. But it just, for me, it was just a lot of great memories. Chance to go all over the world and played at Duke, played at Carolina, 3 NCAA tournaments, and just love watching and talking Iowa basketball.
I was very excited when Corey announced that you were going to be on. I broke out this shirt. This is from the '93 farewell tour.
There you go.
And you're in the center, actually.
Oh yeah, I'm the marquee guy right there. Yeah.
Now, what was that like as a player? I talked to Coach Close as a coach, but what was that farewell tour like being a player going on there?
Yeah, so that was it was a great thing that they did. I forget who started that, but really the biggest year was BJ, Roy, and Eddie. When those guys were seniors, they went around, and it was something where you'd go to small town Iowa and play the teachers, and we'd split the gate and split the half the t-shirt sales. So everybody made money, and it was fun. The year I went, again, just 30 years ago with losing Chris Street, everything was just exacerbated. Those last 12 games, the farewell tour, it was a lot of fun, but there was always this hole that people would ask about and talk about. But just from the farewell tour, it was terrific. Again, you had a chance to see a lot of small town Iowa and play against the teachers, the firefighters, and have some fun. But Yeah, it just, again, it was a time in my life or coach's life with basketball, losing Chris. Just, it was, you were just kind of trying to figure things out. Everybody was a little bit lost, I think, on how to react. But it was a lot of fun. I'm glad you bought that shirt because I probably got $2 in my pocket from the sale of that shirt. We had to split everything evenly, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
Not a problem. I'll be real quick. Number one thing I saw. Well, first, Corey, you need to stop bashing the officials. You were an official, Sue. You know, you were an official. Stop bashing those officials, man.
Please stop bringing up my City Rec League officiating days. That does not make me look good in between Wade Lookingbill and Gary Close.
Fair enough. Another thing I heard tonight on the Big Ten Network, versus every other team, Rutgers has only given up 58 points, and against us, they've given up 85. Against an impressive defensive team, that's pretty good for Iowa, you know, to average that amount. I also think
Rutgers is a good team.
Oh yeah, they're very good.
Sweet 16 team. That wouldn't be a shock. You bet.
And I know I think it's 3 days, Corey, you're going to start to look at the bubble because that's, you know, we've mentioned that before. The bubble is not good this year. I think you're going to move. I think you're going to move your opinion of Iowa up. I'll just say that the bubble is not good.
Well, I'm not moving it down. I just when Wade said 500 in the conference, and I remember Gary and I talking about this in December and saying, well, you end up 500 in the conference and you have a loss at home to Eastern Illinois. So I think you're right, though, Wade. I do believe that Iowa's probably in that scenario. I don't want to have to sweat on Selection Sunday. That's mainly what I'm thinking.
I think their margin for error is really small now. Just that getting blown out in Nebraska.
Yeah.
Even the Penn State game, they were down 20.5 and they battled back. But you know, they got to win Tuesday. That's a game they're favored, even though Northwestern is good this year. That's a game they got to win. Illinois at home on Saturday. That's always a tough one. They just can't stub their toe, and it would always help to win 1 or 2 games in the Big Ten tournament.
And then I'll end. I have a lighthearted question for you, Corey. I actually was able to get tickets to the Iowa State-Kansas game this Saturday. Should I wear my Hawkeye of the Storm stuff to that game?
Well,
will I make it out alive if I wear Hawkeye?
That's in Lawrence, right?
You know,
No,
it's always the older guys. No, I'm not calling either one of you guys old. Older guys that always throw all these stories out. Let me give you a story, Tony. I'll give you a story.
Okay, that's fine.
That should impress you. I was at Iowa State, Kansas. This was years ago. This is where I lived in Ames. And by the way, Wade, I'm a Marshalltown guy. All right. Born and raised. Actually, born in Ames, raised in Marshalltown. But I went to a Kansas-Iowa State game maybe 10 years ago. I don't even remember who. I think it was a George Niang team. And really good Kansas team, as always. And that was a game that went into overtime. And I just remember I went with a friend of mine who was a Jayhawk fan. And I don't know that I think I wore blue as well. But that was a game where, was it Elijah Johnson? That's the name that sticks out to me. Was he a Kansas guard maybe 10 years ago? Does that sound right, Gary? Elijah Johnson?
I don't know.
Anyways, they had to, the referees were actually protecting him because students were throwing cones down. I don't know why they had cones in the stands. They were throwing cones at Elijah Johnson. There was an older fan that rushed the court. It was an overtime game, and there was some weird officiating at the end. And there was a fan that actually rushed onto the court and grabbed Bill Self by the collar, and police had to get him off of Bill Self. It was a really weird experience. And I remember thinking, I just remember thinking this is a disgrace. That's just what I remember that night. Now, since then, I've been to many games in Hilton. I was at the Iowa State Utah collapse where he put up 30 in the first half, disappeared in the second, and Iowa State comes back from 21. So I have a lot of respect for Iowa State, but that is a great, great ticket. You can go to a Kansas-Iowa State game in Hilton.
I was able to get it face value like early in the season. It's a gift. I'm meeting up. I'm from Des Moines originally, so I'm just coming back. So I just hope I'm able to watch the Iowa game afterwards, you know, because I think it's 1:30 that day they play Illinois, and the Iowa State game's like at 11. Oh. So hopefully I can escape Hilton and get back and watch most of the Iowa game where I'm staying. So But thanks for your
Well, Tony,
time. I appreciate seeing you, Wade. I'll let you get to the other callers. Thanks.
Go Hawks,
Cole.
thanks.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate
Go
it.
Hawks.
All right.
Again, couple quick hitters. Jordan says Iowa one of only 11 teams with 5 quad 1 wins or more after today. Ari says, Coach Close, why don't Perkins and Connor do more pick and rolls with Murray or Bracha?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think they do a fair amount, but it's. I think both of them are probably not real comfortable making plays. It's a tough play. It's tougher than it looks. But I'm a little surprised too. They don't do a few more, especially with Murray. Bracha is pretty much a roll guy, but Murray could do a little bit of both. So you might see more of that as the season goes on.
And Rick says, Coach, with quick turnarounds, do you prefer substitutions or pace of play to keep fresh legs in the court?
Well, that's a good question. Because games change from time to time in terms of pace, and you might get a lot of fouls or turnovers that can break the game up. But I think what you try to do is keep things normal, like they're. You don't want to drastically change things too much based on the games. But sometimes you might have to change a little bit if it's a faster paced game or people get in foul trouble or things like that. But I think probably more so is you cut down on practice time and things like that to keep legs fresh and not do as much full court running and things like that, especially late in the year, shorten the practice time. And especially when you get games that are backed up where you might get 2 or 3 games in a week, then you really got to be careful.
Wade, Jesse wants to know, did you take any other visits? You talked about your recruitment a little bit. Did you take other visits?
Yeah, so I visited UNI and Drake, and then visited Iowa. Visited Iowa, again, this sounds a long time ago, but the fall of '87. And it was myself and I forget the other 2 recruits, but there's a guy visiting the same weekend I was by the name of Sean Kemp. So we had Sean Kemp on campus and me and 2 other guys, and I didn't get a lot of attention. And, Sean had some issues, but I think he liked Iowa. I think LaFonso Ellis might have been there the weekend I was there too. But, again, it was a different time. If you were from Iowa, you didn't go to, UCLA. You went to a Midwest school. And if you were from Illinois, you went to a Midwest school. People didn't really travel that much. So for me, it was something where, like, I was in Iowa at the fall of '87. They said, hey, we think you're the best player in the state. We're not going to offer you a scholarship, but we're going to see how your season goes. That's great. That's fair. Kind of upset me a little bit, that they didn't think I was good enough at the time. But everything worked out. Things fell into place. And we had a really good recruiting class that year in '88. And, it was a lot of memories. But so I've had official visits to UNI, Drake, and Iowa.
How high? I just didn't know the Sean Kemp thing. Gary, how close were you guys on Sean?
Well, you probably never truly know. If you get into the, where we're getting visits from kids, you got some kind of a shot, and you're hoping you do a good job with that, and maybe you can persuade him. He's from Indiana, so Indiana was going to be those Indiana schools are going to be tough schools to beat, and that's how it turned out. But he obviously a very talented kid that wasn't real disciplined. I think that's probably where it cost his career. But in terms of pure talent, boy, he had everything.
Scary.
I want to take a moment to thank Brad Van Meter and his team again down at State Farm in Des Moines. Give them a call at 515-256-6480, whether we're talking auto insurance, life insurance, renter's insurance, etc., or, of course, business insurance. If you own or operating a small or larger local business in the area, certainly give Brad and his team a call or visit them online, www.bradvanmeter.com. We're in person at 4229 Fleur Drive in Des Moines, and I promise we've got to make this quick, Ryan. Ryan got in here a little bit late. Ryan, we're going to add you to the stream. How you doing, sir?
Hey, gentlemen, how are you?
What's up, Ryan? How do you think of the officiating tonight, Ryan?
Which game? The Iowa, this afternoon Iowa game?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was all right.
There was
was
no
that-
Courtney Green wasn't there. Paul
We
Slater.
shot 34 free throws.
Larry was
we shot
there.
14.
Little Larry.
Larry Scarrato was there. You good. And you.
There was that one call where the guy jumped on Perkins' back twice. Nothing was called, and then they finally kind of did a makeup call because I think a fingernail may have clipped Perkins. I thought that was kind of strange, but anyway, congratulations on the Eagles, coach. And Wade, real quick, my favorite Wade Lookingbill memory, besides the obvious Illinois bank shot, but unfortunately it was your last game, and that was in the NCAA tournament against Wake Forest. So the whole storyline before tip-off was the death of Chris Street, and his fifth-year senior named Lookingbill took over his spot in the lineup. Well, then Wade comes out and starts the game nailing 3 3-pointers in a row and looked like, Seth Curry today. he looked great. Unfortunately, Rodney Rogers and company was a little too much, and we lost 84-78. That was the AC Earl Val Barnes team, and Kenyon Murray was a freshman, I believe. Yes, he was a freshman. So anyway, my question is more like looking forward, futuristic for Iowa. So I'm gonna just assume. Now, I could be wrong, but I'm gonna assume Chris Murray might be moving on, and then you have Rabracha for sure is moving on, Connor, but more so I'm talking about Rabracha and Chris. So I think we're pretty set at the wings. You got Harding, Price Sanford, and Owen Freeman coming in with Dembele. And then you have Josh Dix, who I'm very impressed with. DeSante Bowen isn't going to be in the mix as well as Tony. And then I kind of look at Patrick as more of a wing, obviously. So my big concern is because, these Amoris, like what Rutgers has, great player, they don't grow on trees. So what is the realistic expectation we can maybe expect from Owen Freeman, who I have not seen play? I know people who have seen him play, and Dembele, who I don't think many of us have seen play because he lives in New Jersey. What would a realistic expectation be? Because I kind of think that, assuming Josh and Mulvey aren't necessarily going to be ready to take those kind of roles, what are our big men going to be looking like? Because for as good as I realize this is more or less a guard's game, you still have to have some size. You got to still be able to rebound. You got to be able, we talked last week. My opinion, one of the reasons Iowa does struggle defensively is we don't have a true rim protector. You don't have AC Earl on this team. You don't have Gable Ashaney or Adam Woodbury on this team. Just if you guys, kind of give us maybe what we could expect from that. And thank you guys for taking my call. Fly, Eagles, fly.
Thank you, Ryan. Real quick, just a note, and then Wade, I'm guessing you kind of follow Iowa recruiting a little bit closer because you're here in the state. But I was just saying, real quick, you probably have a good perspective on Price Sanford because you live in the area.
Yeah, I know Price. I know his family really well. He's a good player. I think Payton's a better shooter. I think Price might be a better scorer. But, it's something where, first off, Chris is gone. Chris ain't coming back. He's gone. Right. I think they got to look for a transfer. I think it's something where they not everybody's going to come back next year. I think just the natural attrition of basketball, whoever it's going to be, not everybody's going to come back next year. That being said, they need to find somebody like Coach talked about, somebody that can protect the rim. They need to have somebody that can protect the rim, block shots, that type of thing. Now, those guys are hard to find, but I think they got to try to find a transfer. And then, see what Owen Freeman has. I think Riley Mulvey, this is a big summer for him. He's a young kid. He should only really be a freshman in college right now. And maybe he takes a redshirt year, but he shows flashes. He's a big body, but I think transfer and then a lot of small 5-out, 4-guard types of lineups for next year.
And I was just going to say, we had Brad Heinrichs, who's head of the Iowa Swarm Collective. We had him on the show for 2.5 hours this past week on, I believe it was a Friday show. And that question was brought up. What do you foresee, or what have you heard about where Fran what he prioritizes in the portal? And he was careful not to speak for Fran, but he's confident that Iowa has the NIL, because NIL is a big part of this. I think we can recognize that, Gary. And last year, Iowa made attempts, whether you're talking Theo Akuba, who went to Ole Miss, or Fardaz Amak, who went to Texas Tech. I mean, go down the line. They made attempts, and NIL was not as the NIL situation here at Iowa with their collective was not as stable as it is now. With that being said, Brad was pretty confident. Iowa's probably going to do what Wade you just said. You got to get big man, right? I mean, I think at this point, in my opinion, Josh Ogundele at some point is going to leave. I mean, he was in the portal last year. I mean, I don't mean to trash the kid, Gary, but the development doesn't seem. I know he's hurt right now, but we just haven't seen the steps you'd want to see in a guy who's been here 3 years, and he's using a scholarship. I'm sure he'd have opportunities other places. I just don't see them retaining Mulvey, Ogundele, plus getting a guy out of the portal, even though Rebrach is leaving, and then you add in Owen Freeman, who knows if he plays year one or not. Just your thoughts on needs moving forward at the 5?
Yeah, I think that's a definite need. Like Wade said, I think Chris is gone for sure. And obviously Rebrach is gone too. So it leaves a hole. Neither two kids in the program have shown anything where you're convinced that they're going to be players. Now you hope they might, and that would be great, but you can't be naive and go into a year hoping rather than having something a little more concrete. So I think I'm guessing they'll be pretty active. And why wouldn't a big guy look at this program? And you got good guards, you got a chance to develop. I mean, they developed Luka, they developed the Murrays. I mean, why wouldn't you take a long, hard look at Iowa, and you got a chance to come in and play right away and play a lot. So I think they could be, and we've seen it, how just one or two transfers could dramatically change a team. And they've got some wings and guards that are coming back that hopefully will get better. So with some additions, they could have an exciting year. So I think they'll be active, and I think they could be very productive with it. I think there's an opportunity there for somebody to grab. And
Bowen will get better. I'm confident he's going to be a player here. The portal, I mean, there's going to be guys that leave. I mean, it's hard to retain your entire roster nowadays. Just, we had guys that left last year. We had one guy in Ogundele who was going to leave. He comes back. And yeah, Mulvey, it's now we're getting to the point 2 years into that. Next year, we better see a jump. So anyways, good questions, folks. And appreciate Wade and Gary, you both taking the extra time here. We've ran over an hour, so getting kind of late on a Sunday, and I'm sure you've got work, Wade. We always like these zingers.
Oh, the bad. You kidding me?
Well, I don't have work.
Late. You kidding me?
Circle her wants to know, is it true Dr. Tom once won a game of Connect 4 in 3 moves? It didn't land with Gary.
Guy, but
that one right over my head.
Right over his head.
It's too late. I can't. I don't know.
Earlier. All right, folks. As a brief recap, the Hawkeyes defeating the Rutgers Scarlet Knights in a matinee inside Carver Hawkeye Arena. The Hawkeyes, of course, completing their regular season sweep over Rutgers. Rutgers' 2 highest point totals allowed this season, interestingly enough, are both to Iowa, 93. And then the second highest, remember what Iowa scored on January 8th? 76 points. So eclipsed that today with the 93. And it was, I'd call it a true 93. Not a ton of free throws there at the end, although Iowa basically controlled from start to finish in this game. Hawkeyes have won 6 of their last 7 overall against Rutgers, dating back to 2020. Iowa improved to 5-1 all time against Rutgers at home. The Hawkeyes have won their 10th home game of the season. They're 10-2 at home. And how about Aaron Eula? 16 points, 12 of which came in the first half, reaching double figures for the 3rd straight game. Of course, 17 at Michigan State, 12 at Ohio State, and he made a career best made a 3-pointer in a career best 6th straight contest. Peyton Sanford had 7 points and a personal high with 8 rebounds. Chris Murray led the Hawkeyes with 24 points and reaching 20-plus points for the 8th time this season. Connor McCaffrey, 11 points and 6 assists. The Hawkeyes equaling a season high with 12 3-pointers made, which is hard to do against that Rutgers defense, forcing 18 turnovers on the other end. So those weren't forced, but 18 turnovers for Rutgers today, and Rutgers' second highest in a game this season. They had 19 at Miami in the ACC Big Ten Challenge. The Hawkeyes improved to 11-1 when leading at the half. And again, I think the nice takeaway from this game, other than just the score, is the return of Patrick McCaffrey, and he's such a big part of what, not just because he's Fran's son, but I mean, Wade, you talked about it. He's a pro, whether that be at the NBA level or somewhere. He brings something that Iowa doesn't have: his length, his athleticism, and today he was perfect from behind the arc, 3 of 3. So Iowa will get back on the court and take on a really, really hungry Northwestern team that's rearing for an NCAA tournament berth. And this is a weird stretch of games. You have one day off here. Gary, how do you handle the quick turnaround? You talked about handling that, but how do you handle one day off? How much practice do they undergo tomorrow?
I don't think they'll do very much at all. They'll probably watch some tape on Northwestern, maybe walk through a few things, but I doubt they'll spend a whole lot of energy and just have to go in and, it's kind of like an NCAA tournament game. You got to make a quick turnaround and play well. It's someone was telling me that Northwestern, I think, has never finished higher than 4th in the Big Ten. And this is the first time in their history they've ever been this high, this late in the year, something like that, some crazy stats. So
they got a kid starting for Duke and a kid starting for Carolina. I mean,
exactly.
It's crazy.
Yeah, Chris has done an unbelievable job. They got 2 really good guards that our guards are going to have to play well against. It's a big game because they're in second place all by themselves right now. So it'd be another real good win.
And if anybody wants to assume this is a victory because it's at home, Northwestern beat Michigan State on the road not that long ago. Maybe the toughest place to play in the Big Ten.
They've been in every game except for one. They're probably the biggest surprise in the league right now for sure. And we're going to have to play well.
8 p.m. tip-off Tuesday evening inside Carver. Get there if you can. Otherwise, it will be televised nationally on the Big Ten Network. Wade Lookingbill, thank you for being here. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Wade.
About
an hour and a half.
Anytime, you guys. Thanks so much, Coach. Thanks, Corey. You guys do a great job. A lot of fun.
You're welcome back anytime. Appreciate you taking the time, sir.
Anytime. Go Hawks.
All right, for Coach Gary Close, Wade Lookingbill, I'm Corey Brada here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. We'll talk to you Tuesday.